Have you ever been confused by looking at a label of your omega-3 supplements? Which one should I buy? High EPA, high DHA? Let's break this all down right now. So omega-3s are one of the most well-researched, well-studied natural health products, and there's shelves and shelves dedicated to health food stores and numerous options online. But when you look at the actual label, sometimes it looks confusing. So let's break some of the things down here. First of all, you should right away look at the serving size. How much is going to be your daily dose to get what's actually on the label? Sometimes it can be confusing because the amount of active ingredient, which here is showed by points 3 and 4 as the total omega-3s, and then the EPA DHA is being reported on the label as different than the actual serving size, or that's not clear. So make sure you line those two things up. Secondly, you want to notice, is it a liquid or a soft gel? That's very obvious, usually by the type of bottle that you're holding. And then how much am I gonna have to take in a day? Usually it can be taken together or broken up. So this is something, if it's 2 a day, I could take 1 twice a day. And omega-3 specifically, you always want to take with food. The next thing you want to look at, point number 2, is going to be some natural preservatives. Vitamin E, green tea extract, rosemary extract. These are all things that are part of the label. That's part of the ingredients and manufacturing. And companies put this in to maintain the purity and the actual level of omega-3s by decreasing the oxidation or the natural breakdown that occurs. Things like sun, heat, as soon as you open it up to air, all that causes the breakdown of your omega-3s. And that's unique compared to other supplements because they are fats. They are more susceptible to this. So that's why you want to have this in. This is actually something that should be there. Every good company that makes omega-3s is going to do analysis on each one of their batches to make sure that the level of omega-3s that is actually in the bottle reflects what's on the label. And sometimes you get cheaper quality omega-3s that this may not match, and therefore you're really not going to get much benefit from it. But good, professional, therapeutic grade companies will have a transparent certificate of analysis, or COA, and you can inquire with the company if you're interested with that. Now let's move on to points 3 and 4. These are the active ingredients. So when it comes to omega-3s, the 2 active ingredients that have all the research supporting it is something called eicosanopentanoic acid, or EPA, and doxohexanoic acid, which is DHA. EPA, more anti-inflammatory, good for the brain, for mood balancing, where DHA is more of the nerve repair, brain support, pregnancy, breastfeeding, improving the neural development for children. So think of DHA more brain, EPA more inflammation. But it does a whole bunch more than that, so don't let that be too much of an oversimplification. So you're looking for the actual levels, and you're looking for evidence-based doses. So if you have only 100 or a couple hundred milligrams of each one, that's probably a pretty low potency formulation. And so if you're trying to really improve something like inflammation and joint pain, then you want to have an actual therapeutic level. Generally speaking, around 2,000 milligrams seems to be the sweet spot for most omega-3s in the research. There are higher doses and there are lower doses, but that seems to be the sweet spot, between 1 and 2,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA. And this total amount is those 2 things added up, plus there's some other extra omega-3s in it that are not EPA and DHA. That's why there's 200 milligrams extra. That is normal, but you don't want to have a whole bunch more extra, like double the dose of the EPA and DHA. The other big thing to look at, probably the most important thing after the actual dose of EPA and DHA, is the form of the omega-3. Most supplements on the market are one of 2 forms, either triglyceride or ethyl ester. This one here is an ethyl ester, and this is actually a form that is not the ideal one that you want. The natural form that comes out of the fish and that's in our bodies is the triglyceride form. This is the form that you want to have in your supplement, and unfortunately the manufacturing process is such that when they pull it out of the fish, they usually combine multiple different types of fish, like it is here in this particular supplement. You can look at the source here, anchovy, sardine, and mackerel. This actually is not the best. I usually like to find a single source because we know it comes from the same fishery. And when you mix a whole bunch of different sources, now you have different variables, usually with some that have been sitting there for a lot longer. And so unfortunately, a lot of companies will convert it to this ethyl ester form in the extraction process, and this extraction process is using things like hexane as a solvent. This is something we don't want. That's a toxic substance. However, they claim that it's pulled out and it's purified, but still I think there's some residues that are left there. And then a lot of companies will keep it in the ethyl ester form, or they might convert it back to the reconstituted triglyceride form. So in general, you want to find a natural form of triglycerides or the reconstituted version, but definitely one that's solvent-free would be ideal. So actually talk to the supplement companies, do a little bit of research to try to find that natural form, and that's the one that you want to look for. Avoid the ethyl ester form, because I think that's the one that a lot of people will have the extra burp back and the reflux and the stomach upset because of those. That particular form is hard to digest, and also the residues of some of those additional solvents. And then purity, that's a big one, but I think a lot of companies now all put like some sort of purity stamp on it. Honestly, it's kind of meaningless because everyone writes purity guaranteed, but how do you really know that? You will have to actually ask for a certificate of analysis, or COA, and a good company can provide that for you. And that is the particular lab testing document that is going to actually show all the different mold and bacterial tests and solvent tests, heavy metal tests. And so this is going to give you that extra proof that there actually is none of that stuff that you want to avoid in your omega-3. What about vegan omega-3s? The main source is algae. So this one here comes from an algae oil, and majority of that's all high DHA. It's hard to find high EPA. So that's the one drawback of plant-based or particularly algae oils. New technology is coming where EPA will be concentrated, but that's not yet available to the market very readily. And it's actually quite easy to get other vegetable oils like flax or hemp. These are natural omega-3 oils, but they're not rich in the EPA and DHA. The conversion is very poor. So flaxseed oil and hemp seed oil and canola oil are absolutely not equivalent to EPA and DHA from fish oil. Fish oil is superior because it's more active. Even though they're both omega-3s, that's where the confusion comes in. These are not the same thing because flaxseed and these plant-based oils are upstream, and there's a number of different conversions that have to occur using enzymes to get to the active EPA and DHA. So there's no need, in my opinion, for omega-3, 6, and 9 like this particular supplement, even though it looks good on paper because it seems like you're getting more bang for your buck with more omegas. You're getting lots of omega-9s from things like olive oil and nuts and seeds, and omega-6s are absolutely ubiquitous from things like canola oil. Anything processed will have omega-6s in it. And there's a role for them, but generally our cells have way too much omega-6s compared to omega-3. So I think just doing an omega-3 is much more beneficial for the vast majority of people. And then what about gummies? Gummies are really popular, especially with kids. So they do help with things like compliance, being able to stick to eating and consuming these supplements. This makes it easy. There are some added sugars to it, which are not great. And so I have even adult patients that are in love with their gummy supplements. Sometimes you can still taste the omega-3s, but a good quality supplement will do a pretty good job at making it taste better. So if you're taste averse or you're a child, You want to get them some omega-3s. The limitation's the dosage as well, so not just the sugar, but you're going to have a low level of omega-3s, like only 36 milligrams of EPA is really, really low. So finally, the dose does matter. So I've talked about EPA and DHA. There's three main categories of dosage ratios on the market. And they all are related to what you want to do. Like, do you want to have a therapeutic effect for your brain? Then use a high DHA. And that's just like this particular supplement here. 4 soft gels to get up to over 2,500 milligrams of DHA. That's a really therapeutic level. That's really good. You have a bit of vitamin D. That's kind of an added bonus. That's present as well. And then you can find supplements that have the opposite, where it has high EPA compared to DHA. And that's, as I mentioned before, more for inflammation and depression, mood issues. And then finally, I would say the majority of the ratios are in the kind of 3:2 or 3:1. So that's 3 EPA to 1 DHA. And this is the one that I would say majority of the research has been done on and really indicated for general health and cardiovascular function. It still has benefits for brain health, absolutely. But again, I think if you want to get more specific, you could get into the high EPA and DHA, but most people are good with that more balanced ratio. So hopefully you found this helpful on really becoming super informed and literate about omega-3 labels.